Napoleon and Frenchmen as pioneers of Egyptian nationalism. In Islamic countries, nationalism took birth in the 19th century. The first countries which fell victim to it were Egypt and Turkey. Napoleon's invasion of Egypt was a turning point in the history of the Islamic world and the beginning of Westernization. During the brief stay of the French in Egypt, Western ideas had found their way amidst Egyptian intellectuals. The contact of such Egyptian scholars as Abdul Rahman Jabarti, Sheikh Hassan Attar etc. with the men of learning that Napoleon had brought with him to Egypt, and the encouragement given by the French, roused the desire in some self-sold Egyptians to walk in step with the West. This point can explain why the spirit of nationalism rose first in Egypt to prepare the ground for its separation from the Ottoman Empire sooner than other lands belonging to it. Most probably, as the French were openly fighting the empire of the Turkish Muslims and inherited the anti-Islamic prejudices from the Crusaders and men like Charlemagne, they began sooner than others to break up Islamic unity and destroy the Ottoman Empire, by rousing Egyptian nationalism, in the same way as the British did with Arab lands. In order to revive Egyptian nationalism and rouse the pride of the Egyptians of their past, Napoleon established an institution called the Egyptian Foundation, a sham scientific society supposedly for research in ancient Egyptian history and culture, but which in reality aimed at reviving Egyptianism against the idea of Islamic unity, and at undermining Islamic inclinations, forcing a gap between Egypt and the Ottoman Empire. It was through this foundation that some distinguished French men of learning such as Clot, Saracey, Linant and Rousset were dispatched to Egypt too, whose objective, as we may guess, was to help the Egyptians discover their ancient pharaonic culture and to acquaint them with French culture on which they were encouraged to frame their lives and policies. Sylvestre de Sacy and other French scholars wrote books on the magnificence of Egyptian civilization, and Egyptian nationalists such as Tahtavi discovered the splendor of their ancient civilization and cultural independence through de Sacy's book, Nationality 3. It was probably through French influence that Muhammad Ali declared his independence from the Ottoman Empire and for the first time raised the question of Arab unity. Western missionaries, too, were very active. Between 1863 and 1879, no less than 77 French, American, Italian and German schools were opened in Egypt. Following all these efforts at colonization, a westernized intellectual class rose as the banner-bearer of Egyptian nationality, insisting upon the following of Western civilization. Defad al-Tahtavi (1801–1873) was the first of these men. He stayed in Paris for 5 years and having been indoctrinated with French ideas, he returned to Egypt to propound Montesquieu's thoughts on the nation and the country. Tahtavi in his well-known book, Manahe, and other works made recurrent use of words like homeland and patriotism, words which were not so popular till then among the Egyptians, in the concept of Western nationalism. He declared that the Egyptians were a nation apart from other Muslims, and the core of their love and loyalty should be their homeland. He tried to prove that nationalism is not compatible with Islam, but this was a futile and hypocritical effort. This pioneer of nationalism considered the reason for the decadence of Egypt to be the rule of non-Egyptian Muslims such as the Mamelukes. But at the same time, he shamelessly spoke of the French and Westerners in general, not as a symbol of greed for the world, but as representatives of science, civilization and culture, and suggested that Egypt should follow the West for. Another pioneer of Egyptian nationalism was Yagoub Zaoué, whose father was a Jew and mother an Italian. He lived in Paris for a long time and was a French agent. In Paris, he published the journal, A Vatan el Mesri, Egyptian Homeland, to propagate nationalism. He was a founder of Egyptian nationalism and had a close friendship with Cromer, the English governor of Egypt. Taha Hossein was another westernized Egyptian nationalist. He attempted in his book, E.I. Mostakbal el-Thaqaif, to prove that Egypt has no connection whatsoever with the world of Islam, but that it has instead a strong bond with Europe. In the time of Taha Hossein, nationalist forces led by the Wafd party became a determining factor in Egyptian politics. Said Zaghloul, leader of the Wafd party, and other nationalist politicians were British pawns who considered political independence only as a means of becoming Europeanized progressives and found it in the acceptance of Western values. This was an account of the rise and spread of nationalism in Egypt, showing how Westerners sowed the seed of nationalism and irrigated it.